It's season 2, episode 5 of the Hall of Fame show. And holy sheep shit. Do Evan, Nolan, and I, do we have a lot? Buddy, we stretched 90 minutes of nothing last week. I don't even know how we can compress it to 90 minutes this week. I mean, look what we've got. A review of the Pro Football Hall of Fame, which I think our committee did. We were 4 out of 5 out of what they came up with. Not that we were trying to compete, but interesting nevertheless. So we're going to look at that. I also looked at some saved tweets about Clay Matthews, which I'm going to talk about.
Oh, good.
Yeah, we've got a few, a few passings that I think we're going to look at. Not to sort of like jump into your realm, because you're the death dealer. Deathbringer?
I know.
Death caller?
It's kind of weird. It's kind of weird. Apparently, I do that all the time in my household, too.
Oh, do you?
My kids are like, and they hear a new singer, and they're like, "So, Dad, is he dead?" I'm like, "Why do you ask that?" I'm like, because you always tell us.
Oh, well, by the way, Andrea, and I'm going to do more blatant self-promotion, Andrea, the co-host of How the Hell Did This Get to Go to Number 1, we've decided that we're going to do a Deadpool in 2022, and we thought you'd be great for that.
Oh, no, I'm not participating in Deadpool. That's first of all, I saw what happened in the movie Deadpool. So I don't want any Johnny Square situations coming up. That's a very deep cut for anyone who's seen that movie. I feel like those are bad luck.
You just missed my whole Clint Eastwood impression there.
Oh, I didn't hear you. No, you garble. Give it again, please.
Maybe I'm going to put my own Deadpool together and put you on it.
Excellent.
Thank you. And we'll finish off with the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Probably one of the most... Wow. I guess we'll get there later, but I'm pretty excited to talk about this. I can't remember the last time I've been this excited about it, and I actually will have to... I'll pull the Fonzie here and say I was wrong on a couple things, but we'll get to that later. I got to open up with a little bit.
Hold on. You were also very, very right on something.
I was.
Which I will make sure we have to give you credit for when we get there. Anyway, continue.
Yes. I know. I'll start off with a little bit of praise, because last week we just said, who did we think really needed to do something good in the Super Bowl? And you boldly said Tom Brady. To help their Hall of Fame chances. But I mentioned 2 names. Yeah. One had a touchdown, one had a sack. So congratulations to, and we can say a lot about Antonio Brown, but I think that's a pretty damn big touchdown he scored in that Super Bowl. Ndamukong Suh, I always say that name wrong, with the sack in the Super Bowl. Both 2 people who I think just elevated their Hall of Fame chances just a little bit. AB's probably already there, but he's got a bit of a stink to let go.
Well, Suh's got a stink to let go, too.
Well, that's, yeah. Yeah, that's true, too.
But, I mean, Suh's at least been in the Super Bowl twice now. He was on the team that lost to the Patriots in the most exciting 16-3 game you've ever seen in your life. But he joined Brady this time. And now, I don't know if you saw that today, Adrian Peterson trying to figure out how to get to Tampa to join Brady as well.
Which is interesting, considering that Tom Brady's apparently a white supremacist.
Yeah. He's a white supremacist who basically Antonio Brown calls the best person he's ever met his entire life. Like, he's single-handedly going to be able to rehab Antonio Brown. Antonio Brown could stand the straight and narrow next year and have like a real season. I think that the stink of what happened with the Raiders, Patriots, Steelers thing will be forgotten as like a weird blip on an otherwise stellar career.
Winning tends to do that, doesn't it?
It does.
So, yeah, I want to take a sort of dump on the media that sort of perpetuated that and the people who ran onto this. You before we went on air, you were sort of like talking a bit about the red MAGA hat. I wonder if you can sort of like repeat a bit about that story, because that picture was shown all over Twitter. The thing I love and the thing I hate. I love it because it brought a lot of cool people together in our little group, and I hate because of reasons like this. So, if you can.
All right, so I'm going to start off by saying, understand that I am saying this as a Patriots fan. Okay? And so I will also say that if the Trump side of things, and we try not to get too political, but everyone should know I'm pretty far left comparatively.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to say something that the Trump people are all problematic, then both Belichick and Kraft are entirely on Trump's side on a lot of things. So Kraft has moved a little bit further away, and Belichick did reject the Medal of Freedom temporarily. I mean, I don't think he could have taken it that week just because of the week it was. But Kraft, to be fair, has drifted a little bit more towards social justice over the last 2 or 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, he has his own issues. But Brady is in many ways a non-political person. And what I mean by that is I don't think he thinks about very much other than football and his family. And he knew Trump through Kraft and played golf with him and didn't really think anything more about it than that was his golfing buddy. And his golfing buddy was running for president and gave him a hat. And he put the hat in his locker and was asked about it. And then people were like, what do you do with that hat in your locker? And if you remember, his response was like, what's wrong with the hat, essentially.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Like, he had no idea what was going on, honestly. And I'm not necessarily excusing him for that because he's not very social justice oriented.
Nor does he have to
said
be.
Anything one way or the other about it. But it had never occurred to him there was anything else going on with that.
Mm-hmm.
And we haven't seen anything else he's ever done that has shown that he's on that side of things. As a matter of fact, his wife has made a lot of political statements going the other direction.
Oh, actually, I didn't even know that.
Brady also refused to go to the White House both times the Patriots won the Super Bowl while Trump was in office. So, like, one time he came up with, like, a family event that he couldn't miss and something else. Like, I'm not saying Brady is the world's greatest person. I understand how there's some weird stuff going on with Alex Guerrero. Some of the science of some of those supplements that he has may or may not be good. I mean, a whole bunch of it may be bupkis. But it's impossible for him to be a white supremacist and the guy who's going to save Antonio Brown's career and the guy who legitimately every person who has ever been on his team has said is like the greatest leader of all time. You just can't be both of those things at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand like not having a political stance is very white privilege in this way. Like he doesn't have to have one because it doesn't affect him, but he's just a political agnostic. He has no idea really what's going on, and he doesn't necessarily care. You want to go after Belichick, you want to go after Kraft for all that stuff, I get it. But I just don't think Brady thinks about it, like, at all.
I think and I think also the idiocy that was sort of coming out here with this. Well, Brady owes us an explanation. I think that was an opinion article that was either in New York Times or USA Today. I don't remember which. You know what? And what was it? A few months ago, I went on my opening rant saying, and this was more towards anyone. I can't believe that there's actually a right-wing sports media and a left-wing sports media, but I guess there is. And it was this one was more towards right-wing sports media. Like, these are people. They can have opinions. They can express their opinions. You don't like it, don't listen to it. Doesn't affect me watching any games. If somebody says something I don't like, I choose to watch it. That's how it is. If you choose not to watch it, that's fine. But they have their opinions. They're not just there for your entertainment. They're also not there for your so that they can validate your own political or social beliefs. That's not what they're there for. They can say as much or as little as they want. So no, Tom Brady does not owe you any explanation. He owes you nothing. Nothing.
Yeah. The other thing that I thought was interesting was the idea that Brady was getting a pass for his political opinions, whereas Kaepernick was punished for his political opinions, and the double standard on that, I saw that a couple times.
Kaepernick was in the beginning.
And my thought about that again was, what political opinion?
Well,
other than a hat,
yeah.
There legitimately has never been a political statement said by Tom Brady.
Well,
ever.
Let's also...
Although you...
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay, well, I was going to say... My thing is, when you're comparing Brady and Kaepernick, I can sort of get a lot of that. But once you add that third factor, being Trump, Okay, let's just now back up. Tom Brady might have voted for Joe Biden. Maybe unlikely,
who knows?
But he might have. We know that Colin Kaepernick didn't vote for Joe Biden. He didn't vote for anybody. He didn't endorse anybody.
Did he not vote this time again?
I'm going to assume he. You know what? I'm going to assume he didn't, and I shouldn't make that assumption.
I know he didn't last time, but I don't know if he got figured out that he probably should have voted.
Well, he made zero political mentions on anything. Didn't endorse anyone. Didn't tell anyone to vote. His 8 of his last 10 tweets, last time I checked, were about his ice cream.
Mm.
So
yeah,
it's actually more likely that Tom Brady voted for Joe Biden than Colin Kaepernick did.
Yeah.
Which is, and again, this is not me taking a shot on Kaepernick. I loved his original message. Not so sure about the messenger anymore, because I wish he would have actually said something other than a few tweets here and there. But again, he doesn't owe me this.
Yeah.
So,
and again, there are a lot of other people who are making a lot more political statements out there.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, anyway, yeah, it's gotten to this point where with Brady, there are so many people who are so annoyed that he's good that they're now trying to come up with any reason why he shouldn't be good. Mm-hmm. Like, as I've said before and I'll say again, Deflategate was the biggest made-up thing in the history of ever, other than StarCaps. StarCaps was worse because, again, the Williams brothers they're not Williams brothers, the Williams Wall in the Vikings asked what supplements they should take. The NFL told them to take these supplements. They took those supplements and tested positive for a banned substance that was in those supplements that wasn't on the label. And the NFL suspended them for taking the supplements they asked the league if they should take. That's the biggest crock of shit ever. The second biggest crock of shit ever is Deflategate. And again, I'm a Patriots fan. The filming the Patriots sideline or the Bengals sideline, even though it was a nothing burger, they deserve to be punished for. The filming on the Spygate thing where they were told specifically not to film from somewhere and then 6 days later film from somewhere, even if the overall competitive advantage is probably overblown, they were told specifically not to do it and did it. Like, they deserve to be punished for that. I get it. Deflategate was entirely made up by a very, very sad man who's still coaching the Baltimore Ravens, who didn't like a play that the Patriots called and said it was illegal, even though he then did the same play the next year. And Brady said, learn the rule book if you don't like it. And he's like, oh, you want to learn the rule book? And the whole thing was a setup that backfired. And they said in court that they did not have any evidence anything happened, which is why Brady won in court the first time. Then the appeal he lost, because the appeal was basically, it doesn't matter if we have evidence. Under this rule, we could suspend him anyway. And the court said, yes, that's what was agreed upon, Rule 41. And that's why Brady got suspended. The whole freaking thing was made up.
The only time Brady took an L.
What?
Only time Brady took an L.
Yeah. And the whole thing was made up. And that, I think, honestly had something to do with the beginning of the breaking of Brady and the Patriots a little bit. Because Kraft gave up. Kraft wanted to sue, and he gave up because he didn't want to be Al Davis. Anyway, this is not what we came to talk about. But, yeah, I see where you're coming with this. And by the way, Brady, very good at football, although not quite as good as his defense. His defense is ridiculous.
Absolutely. But it's certainly not like when Peyton Manning won the Super Bowl, and it was only because of the defense. But, you know, the ESPN, just before we go into sort of the Pro Football Hall, ESPN sort of like tried to tap into, I don't know if it was a woke thing or was just something that they thought was a good idea, but then comparing Tom Brady and Serena Williams and their whole accomplishments and whatnot, saying who's the GOAT of GOATs, and just trying to create an argument that wasn't there because it seems like those two respect each other. You know, the old saying of comparing an apple to an orange. I mean, that's like comparing a bowl of fruit to a bowl of spaghetti. It made no sense. Now, if only someone comes up with some institution that just really celebrates American athletes after they turn 50, and then you kind of can compare their impact. I'm not saying that you and I should do that, but anyway, moving right along.
Yeah.
The Pro Football Hall of Fame.
No, that would be a thing, but I figure somebody would have done it already.
You'd think that.
You'd think.
Maybe we might have something else to talk about in March. I don't know. The Pro Football Hall of Fame, we did a great job. We got 4 out of 5. Although, I shouldn't say that we got 4 out of 5. We weren't trying to predict what they were doing. We wanted to see what we came up with.
Right. And I think, though, you got 5 out of 5 when we had our podcast. Well, where we talked about last week.
I think I did, because I called Lynch.
Yeah, because you went first to call Lynch, and I took Vaselli just to be different. Yeah. And I thought that they were 50-50s. One of them was going to get, and one wasn't. So, good on you. Oh, well. Or good on us.
I get something right, and I don't think to make a beer bet on it, dumbass. But
I would have taken a beer bet on that one.
Oh, no? Okay.
Yeah, that one I wouldn't have, because it was too much just a coin flip. So
okay, fair enough. So Alan Faneca is in. No. We were hoping this. We've been hoping this, you and I, for quite a while. And congratulations to him. Actually, before we go into that, did you see the NFL honors on that?
On with the Knox, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I missed the last one with Peyton Manning. My feed went out, but. And I want to bring that up later as we sort of talk about Clay Matthews. But yeah, Alan Faneca, we're super happy for him. Calvin Johnson is in. That was one that we were pretty sure but not positive. And another one that our group came up with. Peyton Manning, stunning. What a shock. That's the one I didn't see.
I can't believe that leaked ahead of time.
Love it. Charles Woodson. And John Lynch. So our group, pretty much, we had Faneca, Johnson, Manning, Woodson, and Zach Thomas.
Zach Thomas.
All right, thank you. So that was the only one we got wrong. But John Lynch, I think this does wonders for both Rondé Barber. I think it's bigger for Barber, really, than it is for Leroy Butler. But it's huge for those two.
No, agreed. And we knew that Leroy Butler had made an announcement that he wasn't getting in like a week before or whatever.
Yeah.
But we found out, my original hypothesis was that they had to tell the people 11 through 15 because everyone knew the top 10 and they were voting and everything like that ahead of time. I didn't realize they're going to do the Knox. Remember, I joked about that. Mm-hmm. I said that I wonder if David Baker was going to be flying from people's house to house, not thinking I was being honest. And then that's exactly what he did.
Exactly.
But yeah, so we thought it would be there, but actually he finished between 6 and 10. And we'll get to that in a second, but I think every person who remains between 6 and 10 is going to get in the Hall next year.
Yeah. And
I think that's 4 of the 5 people. We'll have debate as to whether we have a first ballot or one of the other people get in. But I think all 4 of those guys are going to get in next year.
So who's 6 for 10? Because I couldn't find that.
So 6 through 10 were Richard Seymour, Zach Thomas, Bonnie Vaselli, Leroy Butler, and everyone's favorite, Clay Matthews Jr.
Who can't
not Clay Matthews the third. Clay Matthews Jr. is really Clay Matthews Sr., because his son would be junior, but his son's the third. It's very confusing because Clay Matthews, the first, never played in the NFL, so everybody's confused by the whole thing. But yes, so Clay Matthews senior or junior or whatever, and it was the 10th person, which means that 4 of those guys are still eligible, and Clay Matthews moves off to the senior pool.
Mm-hmm. So the other ones who I guess would have been 11 through 15, Jared Allen, Torrey Holt, Sam Mills, Reggie Wayne. Wait, who am I missing?
You said Allen, Holt, Mills, Wayne, and Barber.
Oh, Barber. Okay, yes, thank you. And all except for Mills, I think all of those other guys are eventually going to get in. I think Mills is facing a tough road ahead. Clay Matthews Jr., first off, congratulations to these 5, but also congratulations to everyone but Leroy Butler for keeping their mouth shut, which includes, because you saw those knocks, right? So none of them were alone. I mean, I guess
no.
The amount of work that has to go into that. So I wonder how that works. So I guess David Baker's got somebody in his staff just calling the wives arranging this shit. I don't know.
Yeah. So when Faneca answered the door, he turned around and was shocked by the number of people there. And apparently Stanley had driven 5 hours to sneak in the back door when David Baker knocked on the front door. So apparently people were in on it and knew to a certain extent. I know with Drew Pearson, his meeting, because he's in that room with Staubach and Jerry Jones, right?
Right.
At the time. And Staubach had called the meeting back, or he said, "Hey, we're going to have a little thing back at the facility. Do you want to come in and talk to us?" I said, "Yeah, sure, why not?" Not knowing that David Baker was going to show up for that. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, there was some planning ahead of time. I know Manning's you didn't see, but Manning was, in the stadium giving an interview on a field when, all of his former coaches came out. And,
so it wasn't a party
was
it was leaked. Okay.
Coach back in Tennessee and all sorts of stuff. And then while they were talking to him, saying all this nice stuff, okay, guys, and he turned around and then David Baker was there. So there was a lot of people had have known ahead of time. So the number of people who had have known him knock it out was actually pretty impressive.
Well, that's, again, I'm more impressed with that than anything else, which kind of leads you back to then Clay Matthews, because the day of, and I'm more referring to Jen Matthews, Clay's daughter, who I wasn't sad for Clay. I was sad for her.
She put a lot into it.
Yeah, she so much work, and even the morning of this could be the day. And I was thinking about this, and actually I was talking to our good friend Vinny Laspinuso just the other day, because I gave him a call on a project that I want him to work on for us, and that I'll tell you about later.
Okay.
That when Leroy Butler sort of came out and said, "Okay, well, I didn't get it," at some point she had to figure this out. Hey, Dad, did you get a call? Well, I don't know. At some point, in this closed circle, I mean, because you and I sort of suspected that, again, well, incorrectly so, as it turned out, that that they all sort of knew something, or didn't know something, or they were still sort of keeping it underfoot. But at this point, they would have had to. Drew Pearson apparently had that filmed on the 25th.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
It was that long ago.
Yeah. So I read that, unless that was a typo, but I don't believe so. So he knew a long time ago, and he let that slip, the day of. And I mean, at that point, it's not like he's taking anyone's spot. So, I mean, he might as well just say that.
Right.
The thing with Tom Flores leaked. Bill Nunn's didn't, but I mean, there wasn't anything with that. And congratulations to those 3 individuals, too. Raider Nation must be super happy, as they should be. I wonder if Coors Light knew. With them being a sponsor of they're a sponsor, aren't they? Through Anheuser-Busch, yeah, it's got to be, isn't it? I don't know.
Anheuser-Busch is Coors Light, though.
But isn't? I thought they own. I just assume they own everything.
No. Coors, it's Miller Coors, which is now owned by InBev, or is it the other way? It's InBev owned Anheuser-Busch. But Miller and Coors combined into one company, but Anheuser-Busch is. Are
they sponsors of the NFL? I don't know.
I can make them.
Okay, it doesn't matter. But either way, I mean, if they weren't in bed on this, then good on Coors Light for sort of pushing that one through. I think that's awesome. Mm-hmm. I think it's that was probably one of my favorite commercials. And I just said last week how I don't like commercials. Shit, I guess I got to drink Coors Light and Modelo. Go Amanda.
To answer your question, Coors Light was the official beer from 2003 through 2010. When Bud Light officially replaced it as the official sponsor.
I missed the Bud Bowl, by the way. I just wanted to put that out. But the Browns fans, my God, some of the things they put out, because I saved a few of them. Let me bring them out.
The one saying that that Clay Matthews was a better player than Calvin Johnson?
There's a few of that. Let me see where I put that. I've got so many damn windows.
So while you're looking at that, one thing I did enjoy was they had a little vignette on Twitter that got posted. The show, I guess, is on Saturday next week, of everyone finding out about it and everything. But then David Baker was talking to Calvin Johnson and Alan Faneca, and they said to Faneca, like, how did you keep this a secret? And Faneca said, I was having so much trouble trying to keep track of what lie I told to what person about getting into the Hall of Fame. I really like Faneca. He seems like a genuinely good guy. It was just like, it was ridiculously hard. So,
well, here are some people who didn't like Alan Faneca. I'll spare them their Twitter handles, but I saved a few here that I thought were the dumbest things I've ever seen. All right. Alan Faneca, whoever that is, gets into the Hall of Fame before Clay Matthews Jr. Shake my head. Mm-hmm.
Wait, so the six-time first-team All-Pro over the guy who made the Pro Bowl once? Okay.
Well, also in the same division as your Browns. So if you don't know who Alan Faneca is.
Right.
Here's another great one. I don't even know what he's trying to say with this, or she. It looks like a guy. Clay Matthews' snub is race-motivated. Huh?
Yep, there weren't any white people in this class.
Yeah,
Faneca, Lynch, and Manning. It's all trick of the lighting in the stadiums.
Unless he's trying to say there were too many white people in this group, I don't know. Okay, this one is a mess. Say his name, Clay Matthews, 19-year stud.
Oh, boy. Don't do that.
Yeah, that one's wrong on so many levels. And I guess bordering on homoerotic. Clay Matthews, 19-year stud. Sounds like something you're advertising for. I don't know.
Or how the retirement plan for a racehorse.
Exactly. But yeah, that was probably the most unintentional offensive one I read. This one actually made me laugh. I think you'd appreciate this one. Hall & Oates are in the Hall of Fame, but not Clay Matthews.
Okay.
I was laughing, and I don't even know why I'm laughing. It just made me laugh.
I'm not quite sure what Hall & Oates have to do with anything, but sure.
Well,
it's like, is that it? I mean, because, is that an anti-Phillies Blue-Eyed Soul thing? Like, what's going on?
I don't know where he's going with that. I guess he really hates Maneater.
Oh, here she comes.
I love that.
The first song I remember. I've said that. That's the first song I ever remember hearing on the radio.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, because my two best friends at the time were Kristen and Mindy. Mindy was a white-skinned Colombian girl who was adopted by an Asian woman. And Kristen was a Korean girl adopted by a white family. And I thought they had switched parents at one point.
When you're a little kid.
I was like 3 or 4, and that song was on the radio, and they were chasing me around for Maneater. That's the first song I legitimately remember hearing on the radio.
Okay, I got 2 more here. So he's comparing this to Drew Pearson. This dude had 2 1,000 season, but Clay Matthews Jr. gets snubbed as one of the best linebackers of all time. Okay. Yeah, they weren't against each other in the pool, dude, but okay.
Also, how many 1,000-yard seasons did Clay Matthews have?
Well, that's another point.
Check and mate, my friend.
Mm-hmm. This one, and the last one, where this guy just really clowns himself. John Lynch? John Lynch over Clay Matthews? John Lynch was 2nd or 3rd best safety of the 90s at best, which I think means he really should be in the Hall of Fame, if that's what you think. Second.
Okay. Let me. Sorry. Let's just take this. You ready?
Yeah.
So, Clay Matthews played mostly in the 80s, right? You would say?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So second or third best safety, right? Let's just go linebackers. Singletary. Who's better?
Well,
Jack Lambert.
Mm-hmm.
Lawrence Taylor. Ted Hendricks. Andre Tippett. There's 5 without really breaking a sweat. Carl Banks. Who would you rather have, Banks or... That's an interesting one, actually. But, like,
Ooh,
who are we fooling here? Like, I'm sorry. If Browns fans want to hate me, Browns fans can hate me. He's the 34th best outside linebacker. His son was better than him. On this list of people, just the preliminary list of people who didn't get to be finalists, Cornelius Bennett is better. Joey Porter is better. And I hate Joey Porter as a person. But Joey Porter is a much better player than he was. Like, what are we doing here? He's not a Hall of Famer. He played for a long time. And one of my favorite was the guy who put up the stats for him versus Urlacher.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for some reason, Urlacher is now the baseline that everyone measures everybody against. I don't quite get it. But he put his stats against Urlacher. He's like, look how many more tackles he has. But, like, Urlacher's leading, 5 categories. It's like, look how many more tackles I have. Yeah, he played 7 more seasons than Urlacher did. Of course he has more tackles.
And the thing that people, when they bring up defensive stats, keep forgetting, you can't necessarily compare them when you're looking at offensive stats. When your offenses are trying to avoid the top defensive players. Darrelle Revis, who I think...
That's particularly true with interceptions for cornerbacks.
Right. But I mean, particularly for that. But it's still, because you're top guy, you're double teaming, you're the pass rusher you're afraid of the most. You're positioning the ball away from, you're attacking the weak parts of your opponents.
Mm-hmm.
But again, what do we know? What do I know?
I don't know. I just want to bring up one quick thing. So the election of John Lynch, you know how much I love closing classes on things.
Oh, yeah, please.
That now means everybody who was on the ballot in 2014 is now in the Hall of Fame. So all 15 players and Eddie DeBartolo, who was not a player, but that's what they did back then. All of them are in the Hall of Fame, making this because we don't know anything about the original classes, because they only told us who was elected, but not who else was nominated. But that makes it, since 1970, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15th class, where everybody is in. And it also brings us to the point where if Don Coryell gets in, which I think is a legitimate possibility for next year, as a coaching candidate.
I would think so.
That closes 2015. Art Modell, who I think is less of a likely candidate, closes 2013 now. And the class of 2019, just 2 years ago, would be closed if Baselli, Seymour, and Coryell get in, which I think is a decent chance, to be honest.
Think about this. Art Modell gets in next year, and Clay Matthews isn't a senior candidate.
And tell you, it's not that far from the Cleveland to send a mob down to camp to burn it down. It's not like they're in open.
I don't think I'm wrong in this. Didn't somebody get arrested because they literally pissed on his grave?
I have no idea.
I think I'm right on that. I think somebody did piss on Modell's grave, took a picture of it, of course, because that's
There's a lot of people who take pictures of their criming these days.
That's true.
Everybody saw Home Alone and thought, I should be the Wet Bandits.
Oh yes. See, that was before Joe Pesci got scary.
That before?
Well, didn't Goodfellas happen after?
Oh, that's true. Yeah, My Cousin Vinny also happened after. So.
Right. Well, and what was it? What was the other one? Casino that was after?
Yeah, that's also true. That's back when he was funny. Funny how, huh? How'd you think he was funny in Home Alone? So, but before we get off of this one, so predictions for next year. Can I just talk about who's eligible next year just quickly before we move on?
Definitely.
So next year, eligible for the first time. And I'm going to say these in order, the reverse order of I think their chances of getting in. But these are the biggest names, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Bottom of the list is Chad Greenway. I don't think he's getting in, but he played for 10 years for the Vikings.
Mm-hmm.
Moving up a little bit, we're going to go probably Mario Williams, number 1 draft pick, but just felt like he was disappointing for most of his career. Then we have a bunch of wide receivers who I'm not sure how we put them in. It's Anquan Boldin I have third, but we have Steve Smith and Andre Johnson.
Man.
That's going to be interesting when we add those to Holt and Wayne. By the way, Reggie Wayne did not handle not getting the Hall of Fame very well.
Oh, I didn't see. What did he do? Did he tweet something?
He tweeted like, you can't be king of the JV squad, or it was something along those lines. It was just like, it was just sour grapesy. So I don't know what to do with those three. In my opinion, who would you rank first between Anquan Boldin, Andre Johnson, and Steve Smith?
Boldin barely. But I'm a little biased because I just like that guy so much. He's just such a great guy.
I love that guy. Yeah, I love that guy too, but he's third for me, I think, out of those three.
Yeah, I'm letting my whole character. Like, Chris, there's nothing wrong with any of those three guys. Andre Johnson, I think, was the most explosive.
Yeah, Steve Smith had a mouth, but it wasn't like he wasn't a bad guy. He just liked talking trash. He was entertaining.
I think Johnson was at his when they were all at their best. Johnson was the best. Smith had the lengthy career. Boldin was the guy you wanted in the locker room. But then when I say it like that, it's not like I have any issues with those other two guys. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. So that's going to be interesting with those 5 wide receivers. That's going to be very, very interesting. I think them coming on is very bad for Henry Ellard.
Well, you know who it's also bad for is Hines Ward. That could knock Ward off the semifinalist.
Well, except for the fact we have 6 spots opening up in the semifinalist list because we have the 5 plus
Clay's.
Clay going away. So there are going to be 6 spots opening up. It'll be interesting to see who those other folks are who end up making it that far. But anyway, so the other people who are here, Robert Mathis, who was a hell of a defensive end for the Colts, but may not have the name recognition. I'm going to be interested to see what happens with Mathis. Vince Wilfork for the Patriots and the Texans. I'm going to be interested to see what happens with him as well. And then, of course, Tony Romo. And who's not going to get in, but might be one of those people who makes things complicated for Eli when he gets there. And finally, DeMarcus Ware, who I think has the best chance of being a first ballot.
Tony Romo, the way he's going, I know that's not technically inducted, but couldn't you see him what's the name of the award for the media for the television personality?
Oh, I can't think of what it is.
Okay, but
sorry. I made me think of something else. But go ahead, finish that first.
No, I was just going to say, he's fantastic in this role. Way better than I ever thought he'd be.
Yeah, well, we'll get to see how good Philip Rivers is next year. So,
well, Drew Brees, I'm not expecting much
backing or whatever. But I do have to say, my prediction, by the way, for next year of those 6 spots being filled not only on the semifinalist list but on the finalist list. I think we're going to have all the same people we had this year. There are the 9 remaining, plus Ware to make 10. And then we're going to have one more, at least one of those 3 guys, a wide receiver. I think Patrick Willis at some point has to hit the finalist list here. We may have another one of the defensive backs, so maybe Darren Woodson finds his way on. And I have to say, I hope Willie Anderson, now that we've gotten rid of offensive lineman, finds his way up there. I think Willie Anderson seems to have the most momentum. When you say, I love Richmond. Richmond's just a great guy in general.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know one of the two of them. And then I think Steve Tasker is going to make the finalist list next year, finally. It's his last year as well. And if he makes the finalist list with only DeMarcus Ware as a first-time candidate, I think he has a better shot of getting in than Mathis did if he ever gets to the finalist list, because it's a really good year for him with only one finalist, one first ballot potential. Because I think only Ware is going to get a first ballot. People can talk about the other wide receivers, but there's going to be too many of them.
Well, we also knew going in that there was going to be all these players were fighting for 3 spots. That's not the case this year.
Right. Yeah. And I said that we were gonna have Manning, Woodson, an offensive lineman, a wide receiver, and a wild card. I've been saying that the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
And we had Manning, Woodson, the correct offensive lineman. No offense to Baselli, who I think is a Hall of Famer, will be next year. But Alan Faneca has been waiting 3 years too long.
Mm-hmm.
And Calvin Johnson, we thought would get in, and he did. And then it would just happen to be the person who'd been on the ballot the most, John Lynch.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's nothing wrong with that. So next year, I think it's going to be Ware, and at least 3 of those 4 guys. I think Seymour, Butler, and Baselli have the best shot of those guys. Zach Thomas should as well, but it wouldn't shock me if he gets passed over one more time. And we have some sort of wild card person come in there, maybe even Tasker. So
it's very possible, definitely.
And my predictions, by the way, I think it may be Coryell, but Buddy Parker wouldn't surprise me as a coach. Contributor, who knows? I mean, it could be anyone. It'd be great for Ralph Hay. I think that's very appropriate, but has it been long enough for Bob Kraft to be on the bench yet? I'm not sure. And then for the Veterans Committee, I don't know. There's way too many. It'd be nice if it's Gradishar.
That's who I'm hoping for.
Yeah. It'd be nice if it went offense, defense. You know what I mean?
I wonder if they're even thinking like that.
Oh, sorry. One more thing.
Yeah.
I was annoyed with one thing with the I have to say the NFL honors went pretty well. Keith Harvey was actually not bad. But when they did the in memoriam section, they left off Ken Riley.
I didn't see the in memoriam. Was that late in the show, or was I just doing something else?
Yeah, it was late in the show. They had all the pictures up on the dome of whatever stadium that he was singing on. But it was the Odom Jr. was singing "You Got a Friend" by James Taylor, and they had like all the pictures projected on the roof of I think it was the stadium, but Raymond James Stadium doesn't have a top, so I'm not exactly sure where. No, he was in Los Angeles.
It was SoFi Stadium.
Yeah, that's SoFi Stadium. It's exactly what it was. So they had it projected on the top of the stadium, like the whole side of it, but they didn't do Ken Riley, which I was a little bit annoyed with. But anyway, that still doesn't get my FU of the week, which we'll get to later.
Yeah. I guess in sort of speaking of in memoriam.
Yeah, like I said, there you go. So in memoriam and my FU of the week, you do them both at the same time.
Go ahead.
My FU of the week goes to the headline writers at the Washington Post. This is going to be a new section for me because I tend to get mad at somebody every week.
Well, when do we call it?
Headline writers, Washington Post.
We got to call it. We have to come up with something though, like something with oomph, like, or we could just keep it simple. Evan, tell someone to fuck off. How about that?
Maybe. We'll workshop it. We talked about this right before. But my worst person of the week, in terms of what we're doing as the headline writers for the Washington Post, who had when Marty Scharnheimer passed away, and Marty Scharnheimer is one of there in the history of the NFL. There are 11 coaches who have at least 200 wins. Right? One is Bill Belichick. One is Andy Reid. 8 of them in the Hall of Fame. And the last one's Marty Scharnheimer. So it's not like this guy didn't win a bunch. He had a 61.3% winning percentage. And I actually didn't save the exact quote for the Washington Post. But it was Marty Scharnheimer, coach famous for his team's late game meltdowns, dies at 77.
Just why would they save something that bad for someone who's not? Was there ever any controversial thing about him? Not really.
No, other than his ridiculously being fired by Daniel Snyder in 2001 when he did a great job of that Redskins team.
Mm-hmm. I can't think of any possible reason to go with that. I mean, it's not like we're talking about, I don't know, Jesse Smollett, famous for Empire, died. I think maybe Jesse's a little bit more famous for something else.
Right.
You know, just...
Yeah, so here I have the exact quote. It's Marty Scharnheimer, NFL coach whose teams wilted in the postseason, dies at 77.
They couldn't have just died of Alzheimer's, which is what he died of, or just 200 plus win coach, winner of how many games it was, 200 and I forget how many, but a lot. There's just so many better ways to do a tribute for this. And didn't somebody on Twitter sort of like bring out some other? I think maybe that's where
there's one that was particularly galling because of where it came from. Mm-hmm. The Boston Globe had one on Gene Mauch that was essentially the same. And of course, Gene Mauch's Angels blew the 1986 ALCS in Fenway Park where Dave Henderson hit the home run. No, actually, that's Angel Stadium where Dave Parker hit the home run, and then the guy who gave up the home run ended up committing suicide. Later, he never got over it. And, of course, Buchner went to the World Series and got blamed for all that, too. Mm-hmm. But they had, like, Gene Mauch, whose teams never – it was like – I couldn't remember the exact quote, but it was no better. So that was the Boston Globe back whenever he passed away. So
a lot of touching tributes for Marty from some of the people who knew him, and it's a shame. It's again Alzheimer's is sort of near and dear to my heart with what my mom's going through, and so you knew it was going to be bad because he went into hospice, I believe, this weekend. I think recently. Anyway,
it wasn't that long ago.
Yeah. So R.I.P. to one of the great coaches. In our lifetime.
And I'd like to change the headline to actually what Ross Tucker wrote. Mm-hmm. He said Marty Schottenheimer, who turned 4 separate franchises into winners, passes away at age 77.
Love it.
That's a much better way to do it. So good guy of the week, Ross Tucker. There we go.
Oh, I like that. You've got 2 segments. You've got a fuck you and a good guy.
Yeah. So if there's a bad guy who is someone does the other side on, then we should do that way. Good guy, bad guy. That makes sense. We'll figure it out. We're still workshopping this on the air like we always do.
Exactly.
Someone else who passed away this week, one person who had a very difficult life was Leon Spinks. Passed away at the age of 67. Do you have any Leon Spinks stuff?
I'll always remember his lack of teeth.
Yeah, he was more famous for his lack of teeth than any NHL guy or even like Michael Strahan's gap tooth thing there. So, yeah.
Well, Bobby Clark might have a word with you on that one.
No, that is true. That is true. Yeah, but more people probably worldwide know who Leon Spinks is than Bobby Clark.
Depending on the, I don't know. It depends. Leon Spinks is one of 5 men who defeated Muhammad Ali when Ali probably shouldn't have still kept boxing, but he did beat Ali for the heavyweight championship of the world. But then everything just went to shit for Leon. He lost his rematch to Ali, and he never really had a big win after. Kept boxing until, I believe, the mid-90s. Dropped down to cruiserweight, which is interesting because usually that never happens. You don't drop in weight, but he did. He was also an Olympian, too. He was one of 5 Americans who won it in 76 Montreal. One of the other
he won the gold in the light heavyweight.
Yeah.
In the light heavyweight division.
Yeah, another one of those winners, too, was Sugar Ray. So Leon
that seems like a pretty good Olympic team.
Oh my God, yeah. I got to look up who the other ones, but it was like 5. Yeah, I know that there was 5 Olympic gold medalists on the 76 boxing team. Why I know this as a Canadian, I have no idea, but I do.
I'm impressed.
Yeah, thank you. Spinks, but because he had beat Ali, he would always still get high-profile matches. But I think at one time, I was trying to corroborate this. I know at the end of his life, it got better for him, but I think at one point he was homeless. Which is, and I could be wrong on that, but I don't believe that I am. So he just had like a rough go. He was actually one of the first guys, too. He went to Japan to pro wrestle in Japanese death matches, which was kind of weird too, because if I remember correctly, and again, I might be off on this, he would compete in the ring while he was still wearing his boxing gloves, and the Japanese death matches was a really weird scene.
What does that mean? I was quiet because I was trying to figure out what that meant.
Oh, well, it's gimmick matches that are essentially designed to be dangerous. So they would have barbed wire death matches, meaning they put barbed wire on the ropes, actual barbed wire, not fake barbed wire, actual barbed wire. There was a few matches where they would light the ropes on fire.
Oh boy! Okay.
Shards of glass, just basically hurting themselves to the point where you're not dead. That's the best way I can put it. That was also like back before, hey, you know what? Maybe hitting yourself on the head with a chair it might not be the best thing for you in terms of long-term mental care. Because they were doing that shit.
But no, that's probably true.
Yeah, because like when did really concussion knowledge? It's so weird that it took until the 2000s to say, hey, maybe football might be bad for your brain. Or taking a steel chair to the head when you're a pro wrestler. Huh. Who knew? But no one was thinking about that. But anyway. So yeah, Leon Spinks, a legend.
Member of the Nevada Boxing Hall of Fame, passed at 67 from prostate cancer.
Mm-hmm. And, based on how things were for him, he probably lived a lot longer. I mean, 67 is still not that old. But
the life he lived.
20 years ago, man, I don't think a lot of people pegged him at making 67. And his son became a champion, I believe.
He did. Yeah, one son was unfortunately shot to death, and one son became a champion, Corey Spinks.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I believe was with him at the end. So RAP to a former heavyweight champion. There's another big one. I don't know. Usually handle sort of the order on this, so I don't know where you're looking to go on this.
Well, there's another the singer I'm going to use as our transition out of here. But we had a couple other people who passed away. Going back to football, Josh Evans, who's the starting defensive tackle for the Titans in their one and only Super Bowl, passed away at the age of 48 from kidney cancer earlier this week. He had undrafted, played 9 years in the league, and got to a Super Bowl. So not bad for an undrafted guy, and got to start a Super Bowl. We also lost, we lost Ralph Backstrom, six-time champion with the Montreal Canadiens. Really
good defensive forward.
Yep, and played with the New England Whalers, among others.
Mm-hmm.
That's where he ended his career. But he played 56 to 77, 21 years of professional hockey. But he passed away at the age of 83. Do you have any Ralph Backstrom?
No, I just wanted to really mention that this is an excellent two-way player, filled a role on some really good Canadiens teams. He didn't have to score; he could, but that wasn't what he was there to do. Ranked on the Not in Hall of Fame list for hockey, I think 48. He's in the 40s. He's up there. So like a fringe guy, if he ever got in the hockey hall, he wouldn't be totally out of place.
No, there are worse people than that who've gotten the hall recently. So, yeah.
Well, I mean, hey, he was Guy Carbonneau before Guy Carbonneau. Because if the Frank J. Selke...
But he played for the Canadians while not being French-Canadian, so that was his problem.
Well, the other thing is he also played when there was no Frank J. Selke award.
Oh, that makes a difference. That probably makes a difference, too.
So, like, that did him no favors.
Agreed. Okay. All right, so Billy Conigliero passed away today. Tony Conigliero's younger brother, the Red Sox fame, probably the greatest baseball player. His career ended by a beanball. But Billy was his brother. It was part of one of my favorite trades of all time, because it was a 10-player trade, which you don't see very much anymore. It was Billy Conigliero, George Scott, Jim Lonborg, Ken Brett, Joe LaHood, and Don Pavlovich from the Red Sox to the Brewers for Tommy Harper, Marty Patton, Lou Krause, and minor league outfielder Pat Scrabble. You remember that trade, of course.
Oh, absolutely.
I just like to think of all the names of people from the early 70s. I'm like, oh my God, George Scott was traded for Tommy Harper?
I love George Scott and Patton.
He passed away at the age of 73 today. We lost actually a bunch of reporters this week, which was kind of weird. Principal among them probably is Pedro Gomez.
Yeah.
Of one of the Baseball Hall of Fame voters. Passed at only the age of 58. But we also lost, I can't think of the names. The guy from the Chiefs passed away today, or yesterday. And I'm doing a terrible job at this. But we just lost a whole bunch of reporters really young this week, which was kind of strange. But, I mean, Pedro Gomez's piece, if you saw it, I know 4 or 5 years ago now, on going back to Cuba and spreading his father's ashes and all sorts of stuff, was one of the finest things that ESPN has ever done. It was just, if you haven't seen it, go back and watch it. But just one of the really great guys in baseball, and one of the voters for the Hall of Fame, who did not fill out a blank ballot, so he gets extra credit for that. Passed away at the age of 58, which was way too young. We also lost, we lost Larry Flint today. I don't know if you saw that.
I did. You know what? I saw him in New Orleans.
You did?
Well, I mean, yeah, this was like years ago. I was with my first wife, and we were just at some bar in New Orleans, and then he was just rolled in with his handlers and looked around and saw me, and then said, I guess this place isn't happening, and then his handler rolled him back out. That's it. That's all I got. That's why I said I saw him, not met him.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, he was once listed number 1 by Arena Magazine as the most powerful person in porn. So
I don't even know who that would be now.
I don't even want to speculate. So, yeah, he passed away at the age of 78 earlier today. On the opposite end of that spectrum, also well-known Christopher Plummer passed away this week.
I was wondering where you were going to go with the opposite end of Larry Flint is Christopher Plummer.
Pretty much. The man who has, like, the best thing ever to put on an Oscar reel, just him ripping down the Nazi flag and ripping it in half in Sound of Music.
Never seen it.
Just be... You've never seen Sound of Music?
No, I don't like musicals.
All right, to be honest, the Sound of Music is a little bit boring, but there's a part at the end where I hope I'm not ruining it for anyone, a movie that's been around, since
I think you know what, if it's a spoil it for me. There you go. Then just fast forward a minute if you don't want to know how a 55-year-old movie ended.
So anyway, but there's a scene at the end there's a scene in the movie where there's a Nazi flag hanging outside, and he rips it down with his hands and rips it in half. And that's just pretty much like the best, scene you may be able to have ever. And plus, he was awesome in Knives Out. Have you seen Knives Out?
Yes, I have.
Yeah, I love Knives Out. And he was absolutely wonderful in that movie. Before we get to music here, we had 2 more. We had Charlie Krueger, who is College Football Hall of Famer, defensive tackle with the 49ers, 2-time Pro Bowler, but was more famous for his work at Texas A&M. He was a number 8 pick in the 1958 draft. Passed away at the age of 84. And back into wrestling, that's your side of things. Butch Reed passed away.
The Natural. Yeah.
The Natural.
Well, he was only the Natural for a year and a half. He was a pretty big star in a promotion called Mid-South, which it's sort of an interesting promotion. Because it was in Oklahoma, Missouri, Louisiana, and ran by a guy named Bill Watts, who is another real interesting character, who is either, I think if there's anyone who could be sort of a racist yet progressive thinker, it's this guy. And this may not make any sense, but Bill Watts, like a former, I think he was, I don't know if he used to play football, but he was the one guy who sort of in the 80s said, look, all right, I'm looking around at football, I'm looking at baseball, I'm looking at all these sports. Why is there not a black heavyweight champion? It makes no sense. And so he was the guy who pushed the Junkyard Dog, and then when the Junkyard Dog went to Vince McMahon in the WWF, he did the same thing for Butch Reed. Just like, look at this guy. How are you not going to believe that he's not going to be kicking everyone's ass? Now, also to Bill Watts' number one guy was someone who passed away not a few years ago, Ernie Ladd, a former San Diego Charger, and then he made more money in pro wrestling. And another black man who was his right hand for years. Now, fast forward a few years, Bill Watts goes to work for World Championship Wrestling, owned by Ted Turner. Mm-hmm. And Watts does this horrific interview where he says to this guy, this reporter, actually a wrestling reporter, that if I'm a restaurant owner and I don't want to serve black people, I should have that right.
Oh, good.
Yeah. And then said the same thing, if I don't want to serve and I won't use the word for gay people, I should have that right. Mm-hmm. Now, a reporter in Pittsburgh, a guy named Mark Madden, who's kind of a dick, but he's not a dick in that way, brought that to the attention of Hank Aaron, who was an executive with Turner. So we can imagine what happened to Bill Watts. Ironically enough, Bill Watts actually wrote the foreword for a book that looks like I wrote that will finally come out soon about the late, great Chavo Guerrero Sr. So a Hispanic wrestler who told me and told in the book that he didn't want to work for this guy because he kept hearing about what a racist he is. But then they became friends. So, like, a very complicated individual, this Mr. Watts. But, or maybe not that complicated, because I think when you say something that awful, maybe it's not that complicated, but then his actions don't fit it. I don't know where I'm going with this, but Butch Reed was a good wrestler, someone I remember quite a bit as a kid. But yeah,
I think just reading a little bit about him, my favorite part was that in the Mid-South he's known as Hacksaw Butch Reed.
Hacksaw Butch Reed,
and
yes.
was a tag team partner for Junkyard Dog. Mm-hmm. And then he got the fight with Hacksaw Jim Duggan, and they were feuding over the name. And then he turned when Duggan ended up being named Junkyard Dog's partner, mm-hmm. and Reed ended up having to change his name, essentially. That was interesting. I was like, Hacksaw, but it wasn't the same guy. So, anyway, R.I.P. Butch Reed.
Yeah.
Only the age of 66.
Yeah, former WCW World Tag Team Champions. Actually, it took till 1990 before that large promotion, like the NWA, that was been around since I think officially in the 1950s, before they had a black World Tag Team Championship team. It was him and Ron Simmons. Damn!
Wow. Yeah. You are fond of knowledge. I'm always impressed how much you know about wrestling.
But ask me what year I got married, and I always struggle whether it was 2007 or 2008. The only saving grace I have is my wife forgets the same time too. We've had forget at this. I don't know why it is we forget, yet we celebrate the day we met, December 22nd, 2003. I don't know.
Oh, okay. Before I get there, we have three people quickly in music, but before we get there, I do want to say that the Beige Mistress did strike again.
Oh.
This time, Olympic cyclist Imre Furman competed in the 1952 Summer Olympics, passed at the age of 87. But going back into music, there are three of them which are going to lead us in the next thing. I want to bring up Gil Saunders, who is the lead singer of Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes, passed away earlier this week. How old was he? I actually don't know. He died February 4th. But he was, Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes is one of those people who they're unlikely to end up there, end up in the Rock Hall, but there are always people, when it comes to the soul sound, they're one that people bring up quite a bit.
They should.
And then Gil Saunders was the force behind that. He died of multiple sclerosis and lung cancer. I actually don't know when he was born, but that's what it's of. It seems like a combination I do not want. Also, someone behind the scenes, but really, really important, audio engineer and record producer Elliott Mazur died. He worked with Linda Ronstadt, Neil Young, Bob Dylan, the band, Janis Joplin, so many people. Gordon Lightfoot, the Dead Kennedys. It just keeps going and going. All these people, all the way back through Lightning Hopkins and Chubby. He did a couple of Chubby Checkers albums and just around from the mid '60s until not all that long ago, really, 2014 or so. But he passed away earlier this week at the age of 79. So I know we don't talk about mixers and stuff like that because they rarely get in the hall, but just if you look at his discography, it's just absolutely ridiculous. All the albums that he was responsible for either producing or mixing. And finally, I think the big name of the week, Rock and Roll Hall of Famer Mary Wilson, the Supremes, passed away. And she was fine 3 days ago.
Yeah.
Same thing when Hank Aaron died. Hank Aaron was fine and then he was dead. And the same thing, Mary Wilson was earlier this week was talking about how she had a new album coming out and a whole bunch of unreleased stuff was going to be mixed in. And she was really excited about it, hoping it was going to be out in time for her birthday, which was the 6th of March. And then she was just gone. It's amazing. It's kind of weird, but
I always thought that Mary Wilson sort of got, I guess I still think this, really got sort of a bit of a shaft when it comes down to her musical legacy. Obviously, when you look at those old pictures of the Supremes, Diana Ross's eyes just stuck out. She was meant for the camera, but not that she was necessarily prettier. Not that should matter, but let's be honest, it does. And I think that's sort of why
particularly back then.
I'm sorry?
Particularly back then.
Yeah, particularly back then. And I get why Barry Gordy pushed her in the middle. And when you listen to all three of them sing, it's not that Diana was necessarily better than the other two. But they made a choice and ran with it, and that had to kill her, going from the Supremes to Diana Ross and the Supremes. And I don't know how I got down this YouTube hole, but I did, and it was almost all of the 18 performances that they did on the Ed Sullivan Show. I can't remember if they had all of them or it was just a lot of them. And then with each passing one, it's Diana Ross, and then you barely see the other two, to the point where when Florence Ballard left, and then I think she died soon after, you barely even notice, where she left. And, kudos to her for just keeping, that group together in the 70s. And they still did well, on the R&B charts. But I think Mary just didn't get the career she deserved, in my opinion. But it was really touching to see. Yeah, but it was really touching to see that that the tributes that came out were about her and not about Diana. And again, I'm not taking a dump on Diana Ross, not at all. But this was about Mary Wilson, and thankfully that's what I read today, or was it yesterday? But yeah, I just wanted to put that out. Yeah, and we saw her she was on Dancing with the Stars a couple years ago, still spry and everything. It was just one of those ones oh my God, how'd that happen? I know once you hit your 70s, anything is possible. Mm-hmm. But she just went from seeming spry and one of those people who's going to be around for a very long time to gone in 3 days. It was weird. I didn't see. Did Diana Ross say anything? I didn't notice that. I've had a crazy couple of days. I haven't actually seen many of the tributes to Mary Wilson. I don't even know if she's got social media. Maybe not. I'd imagine she did, but I don't know. Yeah. But yeah, I guess when you look at the passing of one Rock and Roll Hall of Famer, it's sort of time to really look at what we've got and the new. We know the finalists, and yeah, I love how they do this. All right, we're gonna be announcing this in 2 days. Okay, that's what they do. I paused my thing on my countdown because I didn't really want to write. I've been stuck on number 7. I haven't really wanted to finish Rammstein, where I have number 7 on my countdown. It's been 3/4 done for a month and a half at this point. And I don't know what to quite say about them because they're just so. Are they fascist? Are they communist? Are they There's this whole weird melange of whatever, and I haven't known how to quite finish it. And then they're oh well, we're gonna announce it in 2 days at 8:00 in the morning. And I'm well, I'm never gonna finish this now, so don't worry about it. So I'll get the rest of them out. But and I still need to get that list to you. But my number 1 and 2, anyway, were on this list, which isn't surprising. I think nobody was surprised. I don't think there was really. I mean, I'm a big champion of Kraftwerk, but I'm not passionate about Kraftwerk getting in, and I can't be because I don't think they care. The ones that are still alive, right. I don't think their fans care. So It's hard for me to sort of feel that level of. Hey, the group I wanted, Kraftwerk, isn't in. Well, there's no personal attachment. When you looked at some of the people who were nominated and their reactions today, those are the people I'm happy for. So let's just get right to it. There's 16 nominees.
Okay, well, let me just start before you say anything.
Yeah.
This is my favorite list of nominees I have ever seen.
I think you're not alone in that. There's a lot of people super happy. I'm going to say we're something that I was a little bit wrong on because I've said before that of course I've never really said that about a ballot, but I have said that I don't think that the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame equity in terms of male female is all that far off of what it really would be because it's only 7.7% female, which sounds awful until you then think about the fact that so many of the artists in are male bands are 4 or 5 members. So when they give that number of 7%, they're going by the actual members. I mean, it's still not great, but I thought, and then some people would say, well, let's have an all-female ballot. No, don't do that. And this is the most women I think that's ever been on a ballot, or it's got to be.
I'd have to go back and look at the very first ballot. But, I mean, the first ballot has, hold on. I actually have the first ballot.
I think the first ballot didn't have any.
The first ballot in 1986. Let me count. Because that had the most people. Laverne Baker, Ruth Brown, Aretha Franklin, Gladys Knight, and the Pips. So I guess that's one out of 5. Esther Phillips. The Supremes, Tina Turner with Ike, and Mary Wells. So not that many. The vast majority of those were men then too. So, because there are a lot of people on that list.
Yeah. So I don't really have a set order to do this, so I guess we can just sort of look at each one. My God, if we had, maybe one day we'll actually have rock and roll votes. I've talked to someone who does. I'm going to reach out to her because I'd love to get her opinion on this. She must be really happy too. That's Evelyn McDonald, who wrote this really good piece on gender inequity in the Rock Hall. So, and I know some of the people that I've talked to her about are on this. I guess we'll start off with one, Carole King. This is
so.
Yeah, go ahead.
I say she's in the Hall technically as a songwriter, and she'd been forgotten about. She was nominated once in 1989 and had not been nominated since.
That's crazy.
It's been 32 years since her nomination. And just to give you an idea how long ago 1989 was in terms of the Rock Hall, the people who got in 1989 over her were Dion, Otis Redding, the Rolling Stones, the Temptations, and Stevie Wonder. That's a long rock and roll time ago.
Jesus Christ. That's almost 2 Billie Eilishes.
Almost 2 Billie Eilishes, yes.
And half a Billy Idol.
That entire ballot, except for 2 people, Carole King and Chuck Willis, are the only 2 people out of the 31 who were nominated that year who are not in.
And it's good. It's good to see her here. She certainly deserves it. Will they count this as a double? I mean, I know when we talk about the Clyde McPhatter Club and whatnot, and for those unaware, he was the first person to be inducted twice as a performer. Does this, if she gets in, does this make her part of that club or not really?
I don't know. I was wondering that too. By the way, I'm just going to go out on a limb and say Carole King is getting in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame this year. Like, there's some names on there. So, like, how is this person not in already? I'll just throw another one. Tina Turner is on this list for the first time ever.
Right, let's go to her. Let's jump to her, because this is I think I'm right in saying this. This is like your most wanted, isn't it?
Yes. Well, this is my most wanted for someone who's already in at least once.
Okay. And this is someone who would be an unquestioned double inductee. Yes, no doubt. So my issue when Stevie Nicks got in, not that I don't think Stevie Nicks deserves it to be in there twice, is that she was the first woman, and again, we do this in the Rock Hall with women all the time. Men don't get compared to men, but women always get compared to women. It's the way it works, unfortunately. Right? So, but when Stevie Nicks got in, she became the first female member of the Clyde McPhatter Club, which is insane in a world in which Diana Ross, who we just talked about, and Tina Turner exist. Right? Yeah.
And Tina's in with Ike, but her career after Ike is far superior in terms of hits and everything else. And it's ridiculous this woman is only in with her abusing. Again, we don't know how much they think of this, of stuff like that, but it's gotta bother her. I do have a sporting equivalent of that with Stevie Nicks. It's like when Mariano Rivera, when Mariano Rivera became the first perfect ballot. Like, nothing against Mariano, but I think you and I could come up with, I think you and I could come up with 20 who should have had that before. Oh, I don't know. How about the first class? Those 5 guys.
Well, that's true too.
But Ken Griffey Jr. just a few years before. Come on. Like, people voted against Joe DiMaggio. People voted against Ted Williams. People voted against Willie Mays and Hank Aaron. Baseball writers suck. They just do. Which is why it's so sad Pedro Gomez, super sad Pedro Gomez passed away. Because Pedro Gomez did not suck. Pedro Gomez generally enjoyed baseball. Which is not something you can say about most of the people who cover it.
Or the commissioner.
Yeah. Oh my God. That's one of my things I bring up all the time. I know that, and Peyton Manning getting the HGH shipped to his house. but that is just ridiculous. You're right on that end. But anyway, so Tina Turner is getting into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Newsflash.
I think she is. I can't see the voters looking at this, their first chance to, and this is actually a really good ballot for her because, and we're going to talk about some of the other women. Doesn't she stack up better if we want to put a female hierarchy, which I don't know if we want to do that, but if we did, and they're thinking along those lines, how is she not either one or two?
Yeah, well, here's the thing. We've talked before about how having the joke was if you have two women on a ballot, they're going to cancel each other out.
Mm-hmm.
This ballot's got a group, which is, we haven't had a female group in a long time. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we have 6 women out of 16, which is not incredible,
7.
but still way more than we've ever had. And I think it helps the women because there's so many of them that you can rank a couple of them at the top. And again, it sucks that they get compared to each other, but that's the way it goes. Sorry.
Oh.
I changed that mid-sentence, just so you know. But that's just the way it goes. Like, that's the way they're going to get compared. And there's no doubt that Tina Turner and Carole King are 1-2 on that list of the folks who are here.
The one that we'll just stick with all the women here. Chaka Khan, I don't know if you noticed this here. They've now, this is her 6th induct or nomination, but now
7th.
Is it 7th? Okay.
Yeah, so 3 on her own and 4 with Rufus.
Okay, so the last few were with Rufus. So it's like, okay, well, that didn't work. Let's try this one again.
Well, they did that with a couple of nominees you'll see this year, but I mean, only with her on her own. But yeah,
I see a little Nile Rodgers in her future, if you know what I'm saying.
Oh, I don't disagree. I mean, Chic is what has the most. They have the most nominations with 11,
mm-hmm.
and never going to. So,
because for Chaka Khan, putting Tina Turner on this list didn't do her any favors.
It does not. And neither does putting Dionne Warwick.
Exactly.
Even though they're separate.
Well, I mean, their music doesn't really overlap, but Dionne Warwick, this one, I think she's got the second hardest shot to get in, is Dionne Warwick. I thought...
She'll of course seen that, though.
Well done, her and her psychic friends. Well, speaking with her psychic friends, like if she gets in, then she will be in there with, because that's what her friends are for, to welcome her.
Oh, well done.
Thank you.
That gets an applause, my friend. Well done.
Because I believe they're all in. Dionne, I think, is going to, because she has sort of, if we want to talk about rock and roll credibility, I'd put Tina almost at the top. I'd put Dionne at the bottom.
Yeah.
And then it's not even like, and I just love her 60s music. One of my favorite adult contemporary songs is Deja Vu. I just love that song. It's got a real nice little soul to it. Dionne's going to really struggle, and I don't know if they're really going to pay attention. Each voter obviously has a different mindset. Dionne didn't write any of her own material, and there's a lot of people who've come up with some brilliant songwriting. That's not her. I actually, if I would have learned before that, there would have been 6 individual spots or 6 individual singers for women, and try to sort of place this in my head. I would have thought the spot would have gone to Mariah Carey.
I would have thought the spot would have gone to Pat Benatar.
Yeah, that's an interesting one, isn't it?
Yeah, she was up for the first time last year, and I was surprised not to see her back again. Like, no offense to Chaka Khan, but we'd be better off with Chaka Khan taking the year off and having Pat Benatar on there. That would be better for Chaka Khan.
I agree. Well, another person who's on for the first time, and this is the person I pegged it with the least amount of chances. And again, it's not my personal taste. I would put her higher than that for my personal list, but I think Mary J. Blige, this is a terrible ballot for her.
It's not the greatest ballot, but it's not I don't think it's an awful ballot for her.
Really?
So
okay.
Two I don't see getting in off this ballot are Dionne Warwick and Kate Bush.
Mm-hmm.
And no offense to Kate Bush, but she's a little too indie for this list. Does that make sense?
It does.
So I feel like Jay-Z being here actually kind of helps marry J Blige.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. Everybody loves her. Like, everybody loves Mary J. Blige. And when she shows up on anything, everybody gets excited. I don't know if she'll necessarily get it in. I have her as my 7th person if it goes that far. But I don't think this is the worst list for her I've ever seen.
Okay. See, I think
anyway,
I think with Kate Bush though, she's very unique here.
That is true.
So that she stands out more. And Mary J, it's what's her 3rd year of eligibility. She's got time. Tina's been waiting so long, and not that those two really have a similar sound, but we know that some of them might just paint them in the same brush. And if we talk about spots that they have, I think that there's 2 spots that almost are going to go for almost every voter. I mean, we have a Peyton Manning, Charles Woodson on our hands in Jay-Z and the Foo Fighters.
Yeah, well, except that I think that 4 of the 5 to 7 spots are already taken off of this list. I think everyone else is competing for the last 1 to 3. So I think it's Jay-Z, the Foo Fighters, Carole King, and Tina Turner. Well, it's not even in that order. I think the order is Tina Turner, Jay-Z, Foo Fighters, Carole King. But I think all 4 of those spots are basically locked up by the fact they're all here.
Yes, I'm not so sure. I don't feel the same confidence on Carole King. I totally agree on the other 3. The one group we haven't mentioned in terms of the female persuasion, I'm so happy with this one. The Go-Go's. I love the Go-Go's. I'm so happy. They're happy. If you saw their social media, and they deserve this. They do.
100% they deserve it. 100% they deserve it.
I hope they get in. That would be someone who I would vote for. I don't know who I would take off. But yeah, it's my God.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, they're here, which is the good news. So even if I think it's an interesting ballot because they're the only female group. We rarely get female groups, as you always say.
Right. Let's be honest. There's not that many.
Not that many, right? I mean, and there are some of the more recent ones. Someone like En Vogue, who I think has at least a somewhat decent argument for this whole thing, like hasn't been nominated. And I mean, after that, who are you going to? Like the Runaways? Like what other?
I'll throw a pair. Salt and Pepper.
Sorry?
I'll throw a pair. Salt and Pepper.
Salt and Pepper. There's another good group, right? But there aren't a ton of them. I don't know if TLC is not eligible yet. I don't believe.
No, they're not. Shangri-La's are one that I would champion myself, but
yeah, well, you're going back at Shangri-La's.
I am, but that's someone who I think deserve it.
Yeah, I'm just thinking like more recent ones, I guess, than the girl groups of the 60s and early 70s. Well, more what I was thinking. There haven't been a ton.
No, and I don't see any of the Riot Girls getting in either. The Riot Girl groups.
Yeah.
I just don't see it.
Yeah.
You know, like
I mean, the Go-Go's kind of stand apart for that reason, and that may help them. But I think the fact they're here, even if they don't get in, that seems like a group that should be back next year. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think then beyond that, there's just a lot of these the bands that are nominated. Well, okay, Rage Against the Machine's nominated again. I don't see it.
I think this is a great one for Rage Against the Machine.
In terms of who they're up against, yes. But do you put them and the Foo Fighters in the same class?
I mean, that is a good question.
Todd Rundgren, this could be something where he stands out a little bit. And Todd Rundgren is like, in terms of like voting on the Not in Hall of Fame site, his is like one of the highest by far. I think last time I checked was like 95 or 96% put him in.
Is this a year? Is this a year that Todd Rundgren gets the musical excellence?
That could be
that way?
Right. Yeah, that could be true too. Because you could put him in there, and it's a hell of a lot. It makes a lot more sense. And no disrespect to Nile Rodgers, but it makes a lot more sense than Nile Rodgers. Because Todd Rundgren's producing career it just dwarfs so many.
It's legit. Todd Rundgren's producing career is entirely legit.
Mm-hmm. LL Cool J,
our favorite.
Yeah, well, LL Cool J is he's just gonna have to chill. See what I did? Just a little bit longer. Jay-Z doesn't help him out on this. They're not going to put Jay-Z and LL Cool J in the same.
No,
it's just
they're not. I'd rather see the spot go to Eric B. and Rakim or Africa Bambaataa or hell, even the Sugar Hill Gang. Just like somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? This is his 6th time on the ballot, which it technically leads because this is Chaka Khan's only 3rd time on her own, even though it's her 7th time overall.
Right.
But I don't think he's getting in here either. So, and this is, the rap guys have been putting one up a year, every year, and just getting their people in. So Notorious B.I.G., last year, we had actually, was there nobody year before?
No, it was,
they put LL up there, that's why. There wasn't anybody.
When did NWA get in?
I'm sorry?
NWA. Wasn't that 2 years ago?
That was 2016. We're getting old.
Oh, jeez. Okay.
Yeah, Tupac was 2017. But like they just kept putting one up to get everybody in, and now they have 2. I just don't think that he's getting through. There's no reason for that. I think he has the worst chance of anyone on this list.
Yeah, now that I'm looking at everything, I sort of amend what I said before. I think he's got the worst shot. And I'll repeat what I say every year. LL Cool J. If you're over 65, you just know him as that person in that NCIS show. If you're under 35, you have no idea who the hell he is. It's fascinating to me how he's in 3 distinct generational categories.
Yeah. All right, so here's the ones we have left. The one who I think we talked about switching out Chaka Khan. I think they just switched out Judas Priest of Iron Maiden.
Exactly what they did.
Just try something different, because that's what they were doing for a while with Depeche Mode, the Smiths, and the Cure. They were just going around in a wheel, and then the Cure got in, then Depeche Mode got in. I was expecting the Smiths to be up this year in all my predictions, and they didn't do it because they did this wonderful thing instead.
I'm happy for Iron Maiden. Whether they care or not, I'm not really sure.
No, probably.
Yeah, because this is more of an American thing. I think a lot of British acts they're not that into it. But their fan base is largely American, so I would think, and I didn't really check on this, I should have, as to whether their fan base are really that excited. But the Rock Hall doesn't care about heavy metal that much. Although when you look at up and down this list, there's no one even remotely close to their sound.
No, I guess the closest you'd come, and it's like not even close at all, is Rage? Maybe. Well, the New York Dolls, but even then, that doesn't ring. First of all, I'm very excited. This is the first time in 20 years they've been known.
Mm-hmm.
Although we did lose Sylvain earlier this year.
Well, that's another swap out with MC5.
Yeah, well, MC5 has had their 5 shots at it at this point, including the last 3 years. They just wanted to try something else. I'm just glad to see them back up, bubbling to the surface again. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I think they are very, very worthy. I don't know what it's going to take for them to get in, but I think they're super worthy of being in. So, who have we left out of this whole thing? Oh, I'm going to save one for the end here.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Devo. I love Devo, but they're not getting in.
I'm sorry?
I love them, but they're not getting in.
Yeah, is this a switch up with Kraftwerk, do you think?
No, wasn't Devo nominated before, not that long ago?
Yeah, Devo was nominated with Kraftwerk 2 years ago.
Yeah, so then it's not...
I'm just thinking like the electronic music thing. We can't get Kraftwerk in. Let's just focus on one that people have heard of sort of thing.
It could be. Kraftwerk might be another one for musical excellence. Down the road.
True.
Maybe this year. I mean, that's not impossible. Because just one that I think that the powers that be, and that's the other thing too. I think the nominating committee has done a great job, but now it's out of their hands. Right. I don't know how many voters there are. When I talk to Evelyn, a voter, she doesn't know how many voters there are. Yeah,
this is the worst. Like, we talk about terrible transparency with Halls. This is the worst one.
So it's, very, very interesting. Like, we can't predict anything. It's next to impossible to do it. So it's a lot easier to try and come up with what they are going to nominate. And realistically, the one thing that we can do is sort of like pluck out genres and then fill in the holes from there. Because that's something that they have been relatively consistent on. They've just gone a different route in terms of the gender who's filling some of the gaps, let's say. Hell, you could argue that Tina Turner is almost a swap out for Pat Benatar. Because her rock sound, they're not that different. I mean, they are, but, their peak, Tina Turner's peak as a solo isn't that different than Pat Benatar's. Just a couple years later.
Yeah, because Tina didn't become eligible until 99. So that means that her first one would have been 74. And Benatar's what, probably 77, 78?
Right, but Tina Turner's solo albums, as good as I think they were in the 70s, didn't sell. They weren't on the radio. She was pretty much reduced already to the oldies circuit, and I don't remember the name of the producer who did Private Dancer, but just completely revamped that. Video also was such a great thing for her when you're just looking at this gorgeous woman who, younger people just said, like, who the hell is this? Oh my God, she's incredible. Nobody else looks like her. And then their parents, not that you want to listen to the same music your parents do, but they were just saying, that's Tina Turner. Like, you got to listen to some of this older stuff. It's going to blow your mind. And it probably did.
Yeah. That's funny. I was just thinking about when you said that, the letter that Annie Lennox got from one of the music stations, like a radio station out in, I think it was Burbank, California, sent her a message saying, "Hey, we just discovered you. I think you're really, really great. We'd be interested in giving you a chance to have send us a demo and see if we can get your stuff on air." They sent to Annie Lennox.
Wow. That's awesome.
And that was like 4 years ago. Just like the same sort of thing, generations discovering people from previous generations, just nobody was dumb enough to not know. Since they were like asked their parents and found out, as opposed to like not even doing an internet search.
Well,
so
there's, I think I put this on Twitter. There's a generation out there right now that thinks George Foreman is a chef.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And John Madden designed video games. Just one.
This one. Not to go too far off track, but I do want to say I'm very excited for the fact there's going to be a college football game again on EA Sports. Is going to be coming out with one. It's very exciting that Ed O'Bannon, thank you for all the work you did. But anyway, we have to get back to the most important thing on this list.
Oh, yes.
Single most important thing. You have been pushing for 7 years, 8 years, 10 years. I don't know.
I don't know that I'm pushing, but I've been saying that this is someone who I think would be a great candidate. And when I first suggested it, and this was like back in our infancy of you and I even discussing things, we actually sort of like did this as a blog, you and I going back and forth, I think exchanging emails. And then we put it together in one big article before we finally graduated to doing this. And I suggested, and you laughed at me, In print, by the way.
I did. No, there's no denying it. I absolutely, and again, I'm not because I don't think he's worthy, just because I never thought they would care. But go ahead.
Yes, Fela Kuti is a nominee for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. The
creator of Afrobeat.
Yes, and for those who don't know who he is, just I can sum it up in one sentence: the most important man in African music.
Agreed.
And
it's not even close.
And why I thought back then this was possible was just really one basic thing. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame understands reggae music and its influence.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that far of a leap for them to go to Africa, especially when some of the people who they've already inducted at that point. Well, Peter Gabriel wasn't in then, but Paul Simon. I mean, Graceland was. I mean, granted, it's a different style of African music, but it made a lot of people.
Those are huge.
Right, but it made a lot of people open up the idea of this amazing continent that had all this wonderful music that you weren't realizing or weren't even thinking of. And I don't think he's going to get in, but he might.
I don't either, but it's great seeing him here.
No, absolutely. And I'm hoping, my biggest hope here is that it turns on a lot of people, and there's no excuse now. It's just so easy to listen to music now from everything. I don't know how any mid-range artist makes anything, though. I really don't.
Yeah.
I still think about that all the time. When I was back in the day, when I was in my early 20s, I'd buy a CD for $20. And now for half of that, I can listen to everything. How the hell does anyone make money? Unless you're big.
Back in my day, we used Napster. No.
Well, they made even less.
No, but I do have to say I have a reason why Fela Kuti is on this list.
Okay.
Because as the metrics showed last week, Not in Hall of Fame is a more visited website than the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame's website.
Well, that may not be for next week. Yes, that's actually true. So thank you for that. According to Alexa, which is a flawed website, but there isn't really any way to measure websites better than that, from what I understand, we get more traffic than the Rock Hall. That's actually the first time that's ever happened, where it's actually a higher rate.
And a week later, what happens? Your pet project is on nominee.
Yeah, it's been a while since I mentioned that.
I'm not saying that's the reason, but I'm saying that's the reason.
Well, if that were the case, then Kraftwerk would have been up there, or maybe that's where they're gonna backdoor them in.
Well, I mean, at least the nominating committee's been paying attention. It's not
maybe.
Like I said, when they kept putting Donna Summer up and Chinkin until after she died. That's not the nominating committee's fault. Nominating committee's doing all they can. Mm-hmm. It's up to the voters to actually make the determination. The voters, between 20 and 3,000 of them, we have no idea, are making this decision as to who gets in. So, all they can do is put the best people they can come up, and then we can quibble with who they're putting up in front of them. But they're generally do an okay job, or they're doing a better job now that some of the power of the original people is waning. Mm-hmm. But I'd be interested to find out who put up Fela Kuti, whether it was Questlove or whether it's somebody else who's putting them up there. I also want to know who Tom Morello has here, because Morello will not put up. He's not behind the Rage Against the Machine stuff. When the first Rage Against the Machine became eligible, he was adamant that they not get nominated the first year, because it was the same year he joined the committee. They ended up putting Jane's Addiction up there instead. But now they've been nominated. This is their third time since they put Soundgarden in their place last year.
I would say Iron Maiden.
I'm sorry?
I would say Iron Maiden.
Could be Iron Maiden.
I know
he could be Iron Maiden.
Yeah, I know he pushed hard for Kiss, and that was super hard for him to get that one through. The way he was describing that.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that was crazy. Well, there's the one guy who said that he wouldn't let Kiss on the ballot as long as he's alive.
That was Jan Wenner who said that.
Was that Jan Wenner? I thought it was somebody else. It was Jan Wenner. Okay.
Well, he said as long as he had something to say about it, but I guess
Because there's somebody else who literally said I'll have to be dead before they got on the ballot. And I can't remember who it was. It wasn't Jan Wenner.
Oh, wow. Well, I mean, I get it. I mean, if you're sort of like a big music critic guy and you're looking for meaning in everything, you're going to hate Kiss. I get it.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, just going back to Kiss for a second.
Yeah.
One of my favorite things about rock and roll and music in general is who are like fans of who.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So one of the people who I did hear who had a real outpouring of Mary Wilson's death was Paul Stanley.
Yes.
He's like, I talked to her on Monday. We had plans to. I'm like, Paul Stanley and Mary Wilson hung out all the time? How does this happen? It always brings me back to Joey Ramone calling from his deathbed in the hospital and yelling at Jan Wenner that they hadn't inducted Cat Stevens yet. Like, there's just so many weird things, like, over all these things, that who likes who and all this stuff. It's like, I just remember when they did that was Biz Marquis was talking about Elton John and how Elton John was one of the most important artists in black culture. He's like, I will cruise around with my top down in my car with Elton John all day. And I'm like, Biz Marquis and Elton John, what is going on? But it's always so interesting who pushes for who and who thinks who's important. Because Hall & Oates is in the Hall of Fame because that was like Questlove's Bang the Table band when he joined the nominating committee back in 2014.
Yeah, and Hall & Oates, what have they said many times that, and they're kind of sheepish about being in the hall that doesn't have the spinners, but has them.
Yeah.
But that one you can understand why they would sort of look at that. I'm trying to remember who did And Then They Kissed Me from the late 60s. The old girl group in the 60s, because I know Paul Stanley's solo album had that song. It was
The Crystals.
Thank you. All right, so he did that cover in those, and that horrible idea when the band weren't getting along. So hey, let's put out 4 solo albums, and they're all crap.
Yeah,
awful albums. I think Gene Simmons' hammer on that was. Thank you for that whole thing about saying the hammer. I've been using that all the time as my close. Gene Simmons' hammer on his solo album was covering When You Wish Upon a Star.
Wow. That's just what everyone wanted to hear.
Yeah.
So now that we've gone through everybody, I just want to give you, so here are the people. So Richie Leitner always asks us who we think are things that he compiles everything and posts it out there.
Yep.
So my 16 nominees originally, just so you know, I break them down to first-time eligible, people returning from the previous ballot, people returning from previous years, first-time nominations for who it's not their first time eligible. So I, after all this, only got, I think, 5 right. I'll call it 5.5. Because I had Jay-Z and the Foo Fighters for the first-time eligibles. Then for the returning, I had Kraftwerk, Pat Benatar, Judas Priest, Dave Matthews Band, and MC5, none of whom are here. I also had Todd Rundgren and Rufus with Chaka Khan, which I'm giving myself half credit for.
Yeah.
So I got 3.5 so far. I had Rage Against the Machine as we're returning from previous years. The Eurythmics, who apparently finished 7th one year and then have never been back. And the Smiths. And then Motley Crue, who we still have not seen on a ballot, shockingly. Beck, who we still haven't seen on a ballot, shockingly. Tina Turner and Jethro Tull. So I only got Rage, Tina Turner, Rundgren, Jay-Z, the Foo Fighters, and Rufus Chaka Khan. So I got 5.5 right.
You did better than I did.
Basically the worst I've done in a long time. I still hold out the fact I won the internet back in 2016 when I got 11 out of the 15 nominees. I should have had 12.
Well, it's the other thing too. You don't even know that you could have picked a 16th. So maybe you would have got one.
That's also true. Yeah, no, that was 2006. Yeah, 2014 actually was the year I won the internet. Because that was the band I switched out was Yes, because I couldn't imagine Yes was ever getting nominated, and then they did, and then they eventually got in. But I had Yes, and then I switched it out with Barry White, who's still never been nominated. So, but anyway, by the way, my pet person other than Tina Turner, who's never been nominated and still didn't get nominated this time, and they need to get her in before she dies, is Patti LaBelle. So Patti LaBelle's not in at all, and she's my pound the table person at this point.
I think mine's if I've got like one. Well, in terms of just like one female singer, it's Mary Wells, and which I've repeated over and over.
Yeah, Mary Wells is definitely on my list as well.
Yeah,
Mary Wells definitely deserving.
I think they're just gonna completely forget her. But then the Carole King got nominated again after 32 years. I think Mary Wells' last nomination was around the same time.
Yeah, so Mary Wells has been nominated twice. Her last nomination was. Hold on, I gotta go this way. I have like 37 tabs on my computer here on the spreadsheet. Mary Wells was nominated 86 and 87.
Okay, so even longer. Okay. Yeah, they've just completely forgotten this woman. Johnny Ace, and Esther Phillips were on the first two ballots and never again. So, Evan, have you seen anything online where there's been people really negative? I didn't look for anything specific, but has there been? Because there's always that, like, well, it's the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is a joke because blank, blank, blank didn't get in. Yeah, well, I mean, that's going to exist no matter what. I mean, there was some person on there today, like, calling people out for mansplaining because they were saying that Nickelback isn't eligible till next year. Like, they were using the word mansplaining? Their first album came out they had an EP that was available in 94, so they should be, or whatever, 95, and they should be up. And they're like, great, but it didn't officially come out until 96. Stop mansplaining my favorite band to me. Okay. It's Nickelback. They're not getting in anyway. Who cares? Right? So there are always those people on the internet. But, yeah, I don't feel like there was any, like, how dare they? Because, like, there's always going to be people like, rap doesn't belong in the hall, even though that ship sailed 15 years ago. Mm-hmm. So people are always going to be upset about Jay-Z. They're not going to be as upset about Mary J. Blige. It shouldn't. No one's upset about Tina Turner. No one's upset about the Foo Fighters. People are mocking the fact that Iron Maiden is there, not because Iron Maiden doesn't deserve it, but because they're like, oh, here's the metal band everybody gets to ignore this year. But no, I haven't seen a lot of like negative stuff. I just went and looked it up, and everyone seems to either be voting for their guys or every once in a while they're like, how can pick their least favorite person be up there but not this person? You know what I mean? And that's just going to happen no matter what you do. Like, if you have somebody out there standing for Nickelback a year early, there's literally nobody who won't stand for something. Yeah, I used to have someone who worked for me who, their obsession was Nickelback, got their Nickelback tattoo, and Anyway. Wow. I'll never understand the complete devotion for that band. I don't get it, but I don't have to get it. There was, however... Here's the thing. Here's the thing, though. I will defend Nickelback in one way. They're not as bad as everybody makes them out to be. Like, in the world where Smash Mouth exists, like, Nickelback is a better band than Smash Mouth. And I think I don't understand why they get quite so much hate, other than maybe Chad Kroger's, somehow having hair that went down to his ears and yet somehow being crimped and permed. I don't quite understand what was going on with that. I think that's really it, though. I mean, this is a band that gets so much love, and not a whole lot of people can figure out why, because it doesn't seem like they're that special. But their fan base is... But they're not... But again, they're like the joke of, like, bands, and they're just like, again, I threw up Smash Mouth, but, like, Smash Mouth isn't the worst band because Train exists. Train is the worst band. Like, can we just all agree that Train is the worst? And we should just be throwing Train under the train and leaving Nickelback alone. But the point here is there's going to be people pushing for Train, too. There are a whole bunch of people who are still furious that Blink-182 wasn't a first ballot
first ballot Hall of Fame.
I think there's also a contingent that are upset that Clay Matthews got snubbed for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. That album he put out with, I don't know, I got nothing. I don't know where I was going with that.
How many times did Dionne Warwick make the Pro Bowl? That's what I want to know. So anyway, yeah, well, you're not gonna please anyone, but of the people whose opinions I care about and I think matter, everybody is pretty much. I mean, they might quibble here or there, but you and I think both are lower in LL Cool J than apparently the nominating committee is. But this is a good group. I'd probably switch out LL Cool J for, like I said, Eric B. Rakim, Africa Bambaataa, the Sugar Hill Gang. I just want to see nominated once, just because I think they're so important historically. Or better yet, who did Rocket? I can't think of his name right now.
Oh, Herbie Hancock.
Herbie Hancock. I'd love to see Herbie Hancock. I'd love to see Gil Scott-Heron on here.
I love that.
Like somebody else other than LL, particularly if we have like the rap person getting in, throw a bone to the other people who aren't going to get in this year but deserve to be in the conversation. Like Gil Scott-Heron needs to be in the Rock Hall. And he hasn't even been nominated. So I go, this LL Cool J spot should have gone to one of those people, knowing they're not going to get in, but we can at least have the discussion about them and get them on the radar. As opposed to LL, who's also not going to get in and isn't taking up a spot. Mm-hmm. But I mean, that's quibbling, because if LL Cool J gets the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, am I going to be mad? No. It depends on who he gets in over. But I don't think LL Cool J definitely would not be the worst person in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Not even close.
No, that would be either Darlene Love or Percy Sledge.
I can't think of his name right now because it's 11 o'clock at night. But what's his name who did I Love L.A.?
Oh, Randy Newman?
Stuff. Yeah, he's the worst. Randy Newman writes the same song over and over again while not being able to sing.
I just realized Randy Newman looks like Don Music.
If only he... No, never mind. Well, that would explain why he writes the same song over and over again, because otherwise he'd have to bang his face in.
Maybe he did. And on that...
Randy Newman is... if I could remove anyone based on talent, not politics or anything else alone from the Rock Hall, it would be Randy. Even over Darlene Love. Darlene Love can at least sing.
That is true. I got to work on a Randy Newman impression. No.
You don't have to do a Randy Newman impression, because Will Sasso from Mad TV does the best Randy Newman impression ever.
Well, I got to see that.
Nobody else has ever bothered.
I've never seen it.
Will Sasso's ridiculously good. Oh, just go like a Will Sasso Randy Newman. He's ridiculous at it. It's really, really good. So
nice.
That's how much I hate Randy Newman. I know who makes fun of him the best. I can't say it about anybody else. And with that, I think we should go before I come up with another worst person.
Absolutely,
it's going to be Randy Newman.
Yeah, we'll end this on a positive note, somewhat.
Yes, absolutely, man. And I'm sure we'll come up with something for next week. Don't you think?
Something will always come up, and even if there's not, we'll make something up.
Yeah, we can do that. Hey, we kept this in like 2 hours.
That's actually pretty damn good.
We had nothing last week for an hour and a half. We did 2 hours on like two massive things.
Mm-hmm. Well, who knows?
Maybe we go, just one last thing. Yeah. Back to Tom Brady before we go.
Yeah, of course.
Players with at least 7 championships and 3 MVPs in the 4 major sports. You ready?
Can I guess?
Bill Russell, 11 championships, 5 MVPs.
Okay.
Joe DiMaggio, Yogi Berra, 10 championships, 3 MVPs. Joe DiMaggio, 9 championships, 4 MVPs. Mickey Mantle, 7 championships, 3 MVPs. Tom Brady, 7 championships, 3 MVPs.
Crazy.
I think that's a true top of Mount Olympus. That is your actual sports. Mount Rushmore.
Well, where's Wayne? Oh, You're doing okay, yeah, that's why Gretzky's not on that. Because he's got more MVPs, but only 4 Stanley Cups. Only 4 Stanley Cups.
Only 4, yeah. So I brought them up the other day, and someone's like, what about Rocket Richard? I'm like, he's got 8 championships. I'm like, yeah, but only 1 MVP. So somehow.
But 1 riot.
So, yeah. 1 riot, exactly. But anyway, that's a pretty good list to be on, I would say. Russell, Berra seems a little weird that he's there. I didn't realize he had 3 MVPs. But Russell, Berra, DiMaggio, Mantle, Brady. That's your list. Not bad.
But if Yogi Berra was named Fred, he doesn't have 3 MVPs. Much like Mookie Wilson can't charge $300 on Cameo if his name's Michael. I'm just saying. A cool first name is everything.
If Yogi Berra's name was Dale, like his son, you know, they had the same career.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't say. I'm not going that far, but never underestimate the power of a cool first name that just sort of rolls off of everything.
Yeah. Anyway, man, I'll talk to you later.
All right, take care. Stay safe. Thank you so much for listening. There's going to be a lot more content regularly from us at notinhalloffame.com. Take care.